Do not give up your belief that you have the choice to choose behaviors that will bring you happiness. Chapter 13, happiness is the ultimate risk. What did we talk about yesterday? Like, don't you really just want to be happy at the end of it all? That's interesting. Happiness is the ultimate risk. Like, why wouldn't you take the chance? You're like, it's risky, it's risky. Starting a business is risky. Getting married is risky, it's risky, it's risky. Moving across country is risky. None of that's risky. The riskiest thing is not taking a risk. And the biggest risk is happiness. And that's all you want. God, like to a certain degree, I feel like, boy, I've really figured out life. This is a long chapter, so we gotta go. Depressed people tend naturally to focus on their symptoms: sadness, loss of energy, sleep disturbance, appetite changes, diminished capacity for pleasure. It is easy to get caught up with trying through medication and psychotherapy to relieve these painful concerns. Sometimes, however, especially when my efforts to improve things seem ineffective, I redirect people's attention to the possibility that there might be advantages to their being depressed. One of the benefits is that it's a safe position. The same, of course, could be said of chronic pessimism, which is often both a precursor and manifestation of depression. Interesting. Chronic pessimism is a precursor to depression. It is hard to disillusion pessimists. They are already discouraged and therefore immune to unhappy surprise. Because their expectations are chronically low, pessimists, who invariably see themselves as realists, that's just true. Pessimists are always like, I'm just being real, are seldom disappointed. When I suggest to them that our expectations, good or bad, are usually met, they are skeptical, since it has been so long since they have anticipated anything but the worst. Asking someone to relinquish depression is often met with resistance. To be happy is to take the risk of losing that happiness. All significant accomplishments require taking risks. The risk of failure in invention, in exploration, or in love. We live in a society that is risk averse. Enormous time and energy is devoted to promoting safety in all we do. We are taught to buckle our seatbelts, lock our doors, refrain from smoking, get an annual physical, and consult our doctors before exercise. We worry about the weather, obsess about our children's security, live in houses with alarm systems, and arm ourselves against intruders.
Hey, Dr. V and baby Milani here for a quick word for our sponsor, Resellers Program. Resellers is the quick, easy way for average people like you and me to make a free $750 a month without hosting parties or doing sales. It's not an MLM. There's no credit check to see if you can be approved for it. It's a free $750 a month. Check it out, www.ultimatemoneytree.com, or just text DRV to my friend Jerry at the number listed below.
Everybody's like posting that meme about like, oh, why do you need AR-15s? And it shows paratroopers coming down. Like, come on, man, that's not gonna happen in the United States. Not during our lifetimes anyway. The risks that previous generations took for granted, childhood mortality, infectious disease, environmental catastrophe, are not things that now preoccupy most people. You know? In the modern world, people don't worry about that stuff. Instead, we have designated certain members of society, police, firefighters, soldiers, athletes, to assume the risks that the rest of us are afraid to take. That's powerful. Vivid depictions of heroism in our entertainment are a source of much vicarious excitement and provide distorted examples of what it means to be brave. The links between violence, control, and courage in these portrayals are inescapable and have little relevance in our own lives. It is often hard to sell unhappy people on the idea of taking the chances necessary to alter attitudes and behaviors that play a role in their chronic discouragement. My profession, psychiatry, has made some contribution to this problem by its designation of depression as a chemical illness and its over-reliance on pharmacological solutions. In this, we have been abetted and coerced by insurance companies, which have steadily eroded reimbursement for psychotherapy. It's true. And what is psychotherapy? It is goal-directed conversation in the service of change. Psychotherapy is goal-directed conversation in the service of change. That's what people who come for help want. Change. Usually they want to alter the way they're feeling. Anxious, sad, disoriented, angry, empty, adrift. Our feelings depend mainly on our interpretation of what is happening to us and around us, our attitudes. It is not so much what occurs, but how we define events and respond that determines how we feel. The thing that characterizes those who struggle emotionally is that they have lost or believe they have lost their ability to choose those behaviors that will make them happy. People who are sad, chronicness, pessimists, depressed, the thing that characterizes those who struggle emotionally is that they have lost or believe that they have lost their ability to choose those behaviors that will make them happy. Like they believe they cannot choose happiness. They cannot choose to do things that make them happy. That's crazy. Some of y'all struggle with the blues. Some of y'all really struggle with depression, anxiety. I'd like for y'all to comment. That's kind of a slap in the face with a wet noodle. You have lost your ability to choose. You believe you have lost your ability to choose those behaviors that will make you happy. Think about a person so disabled by worry that he can no longer function comfortably in the world. Every decision must be measured against the probability that it will increase or decrease anxiety. To the degree that one's choices become constrained by a need for anxiety avoidance, one's life shrinks. Wow. When you try to avoid anxiety, one's life shrinks. As this happens, the anxiety is reinforced, and soon the sufferer becomes fearful, not of anything external, but of anxiety itself. People become afraid to drive, to shop, sometimes even to leave their houses. At this point, some patients feel their choices in life have become so constricted that they withdraw from human contact. This same withdrawal can be seen in severe depression. When people are severely depressed, they don't want to be around people. It is the job of the psychotherapist to reinstill hope. Interesting. I frequently ask patients, what are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to? Let's write that down in the comment section. What are you looking forward to? Put, I am looking forward to, so we know what you're talking about. I am looking forward to Secret Knock. I am looking forward to dressing up as 101 Dalmatians with the family. Do you guys know this? Like Erica's gonna dress up as Cruella de Vil. She's got her like black and white wig, her fur coat, Dalmatian fur coat. I'm gonna dress up as the dog catcher. I'll have a net, and Mason has little stuffed doggies that are Dalmatian puppies. I'm gonna put a couple of Dalmatian puppies in my catcher's mitt, in my net, and Milani has a little dog outfit, a Dalmatian outfit, and Mason, you've seen Mason's Dalmatian outfit. And The Cadillac should be done by then, and we're gonna drive around in the Cadillac, stepping out as Cruella de Vil. Isn't that awesome? That's a great idea, right? I'm gonna put Erica in the back seat with the babies. Drive around. That'd be so awesome. So what are you looking forward to? I'm looking forward to Halloween. I'm looking forward to selling the ranch. I'm looking forward to the next property. I'm looking forward to the next journal. Oh, by the way, my little ghostwriter has disappeared on me. I'm looking forward to Secret Knock with you guys, the next tribe gathering. I'm looking forward to cruising around with Erica in the Corvette. Now that we have a trusted babysitter and our housekeeper, we can have more date nights. People who are overwhelmed by anxiety or depression often have no answer. The truly hopeless, of course, think about ending their lives. Wow. When confronted with a suicidal person, I seldom try to talk them out of it. Instead, I ask them to examine what it is that has so far dissuaded them from killing themselves. Oh, that's interesting. What has dissuaded you from killing yourself? Usually this involves finding out what the connections are that tether that person to life in the face of nearly unbearable psychic pain. There is simply no denying the anger embedded in any decision to kill oneself. Suicide is a kind of curse forever on those who love us. God, his words are so powerful. Suicide is a kind of curse forever on those who love us. Think about that. If you can impress that upon your kids and say, if you commit suicide, it's a curse forever on us who are alive. Might be enough to dissuade them. It is, to be sure, the ultimate statement of hopelessness, but it is also a declaration to those closest to us that their caring for us and our caring for them was insufficient to the task of living through another day. God, his words are so powerful. His words are so powerful. Insufficient. Us caring for them and them caring for us was insufficient to the task of living another day. That is psychiatric break. That is like, you know how much suffering you have to have psychiatrically? People in despair are naturally intensely self-absorbed. Suicide is the ultimate expression of this preoccupation with self. Instead of just expressing the sympathy and fear that suicidal people evoke in those around them, therapists included, I think it is reasonable to confront them with the selfishness and anger implied in any act of self-destruction. Oh, that's a thin line to cross. Calling them selfish, but it's true. Does this approach work to prevent someone from killing himself? Sometimes. In 33 years of practicing psychiatry, I have lost this argument only once. A young mother of two, going through depression triggered by a bitter divorce, shot herself on the day she was to enter the hospital. When she didn't appear, I met the police at her house and found her body. Whatever fantasies I had entertained about being able to control the life of another despairing human being left me that day. Wow. And then many years later, I received a phone call telling me that my precious son, Andrew, age 22, had ended his 3-year struggle with bipolar illness by killing himself. Wow. So Dr. Gordon's son, Andrew, committed suicide. Even now, 13 years later, words cannot contain the grief that has been my companion since that awful day. Man, his words are so powerful. Words cannot explain the grief that has been my companion. Can you imagine that? For 13 years. You have grief every day. It is an offense to the natural order of life for parents to bury their children. In a just world, it would never happen. In this world, it does. Wow. When Andrew surrendered his long fight with despair, he left behind so many people who loved him and whose memories encompass an intermingling of the joy he brought us and the eternal sadness of his death. When I inventoried the record of his life that he left with me, I came across a school essay that he had written when he was 9. It reads in part. Here's his essay. When he was 9, he wrote, "It was about 2:30 p.m. and my father and I had been running for over an hour. We were now heading into the wind, so I got behind my father and he broke the wind for me. We were competing against 200 other runners. It was a hard course with many steep hills. In the last mile, we increased the pace and passed several runners. When we reached the truck, we had to go halfway around it. And when we reached the track, we had to go halfway around it. And then we finished the 13-mile race." So that's half a marathon. He was a wonderful student, president of his high school class, and had been elected to the student council as a sophomore at college when he was gripped by the first symptoms of his illness. Bipolar disorder, often you have a break, and it's usually through like a stressful time, and so they see it often in like the military. New recruits often have bipolar breaks, their first break, like they never knew they had it. Or like when kids go off to college, a stressful time will cause them to have their first episode. He endured, we're almost done. He endured 3 hospitalizations, and his moods oscillated wildly between manic disorganization and grinding depression. I imagine that his final desperate moments were eased with some anticipation of release from the anguish he had endured. I pray that he found at last the peace that he sought. Only this hope has allowed me to bear my own pain and go on. Only this hope has allowed me to bear my own pain and go on. You can really tell like he's still hurting from the suicide. His illness proved a cold wind that none of us could shield him from. And in the end, it swept him away. He chose the too soon moment of leaving, but I know he loved us as we loved him, and I have forgiven him my broken heart, believing that he forgave me all mistakes as his father. It's so painful. When I remember his laugh, I hear the lyrics of an old Tom Paxton song. Are you going away with no word of farewell? Will there be not a trace left behind? I could have loved you better. Didn't mean to be unkind. You know that was the last thing on my mind. Oh my God. Happiness is the ultimate risk. Happiness is the ultimate risk. I'm tearing up because I'm sitting here thinking like, what if that's Mason? This beautiful, amazing, glorious child has she grows up, goes to college, has a bipolar break, struggles, 3 hospitalizations, and then ends her life. I would be devastated. Always reminded that how glorious my child was. this book is really bringing home the ravages of this Israeli war for me. I'm not even Jewish, or you know, it's so weird. It just seems so unnatural and cruel and confusing to me. Like why you know, Muslims, extremist Muslims, and another faith, Jews, cannot declare that they believe in a higher God and then just cannot live together, cannot understand that they're allowed, like, it's okay. It's so unnecessary. I cannot imagine the disadvantage, the horrors, and the atrocities of slavery. But Chinese Americans do not bitch and complain about being slaves to the railroad, which we were. We were slaves to the railroad, Chinese Americans. And discrimination and bigotry, the whole shebang. And they just made a life for themselves. And the Japanese Americans who were, you know, put in concentration camps during World War II. And it's not that they were just put in concentration camps. I mean, they lost their property, their belongings, their life. They died in the concentration camps. The atrocities of war, the atrocities of slavery set a whole race way back. And we are just now starting to make gains academically. I mean, they're just now starting to catch up, and still in many ways are still very disadvantaged in the inner cities. There's going to be this generation of the Middle East that is just going to be so scarred. I just don't know how we get past this. Like, it just seems so simple to me. Dr. V, stop watching the news, you know, blah, blah, blah. We are at historically crazy, epic times right now. I mean, it just, comment if you agree. This seems so much more dangerous than the coming down of the Berlin Wall, the breakup of Russia, the USSR. It just seems, it seems so much bigger than 9/11 and invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. And it just, during my lifetime anyway, you know, it's just so weird. The biggest risk is not taking a risk. And of those not taking and of those risks, happiness is the riskiest. Choose to be happy. Do not give up your belief that you have the choice to choose behaviors that will bring you happiness. You are not powerless against that. So powerful today. So I am going to choose to do shit that makes me happy.